And I find that in the New Age spiritual community, that it's really easy to try and overcome your client's objections and equally your own by, well, let's see what the cards have to say. Well, let's do a healing on that fear right now. Well, if your client doesn't understand the root of that fear, and again, you're positioning yourself to be wiser than them, you're not actually helping them. Welcome to the Rylee June Show. I'm your host, Rylee June, international intuition coach and spiritual activator. This podcast is designed for the souls who are ready to dive into what spirituality, consciousness, and healing truly is like. Here you will find the conversations and insight most spiritual teachers aren't willing to have. Why? Because we pull back the curtain on what truly takes place as you move through your healing journey, the duality of the light and the dark, and the role ethics and integrity undeniably play in your ascension experience. I have had the pleasure of working with tens of thousands of people, from clients, stories shared through messenger chats, and others in the industry to know exactly what this journey will look like for you. These episodes will share conversations of industry leaders bridging the gap to the new paradigm of reality, and individuals sharing their heart through their soul's journey they've been through and what they've learned along the way. So if you're ready to go deep, unlock truth, and activate into the blueprint of you, this is going to be a space you're not going to want to miss out every Monday. Are you ready? Let's activate. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another session. I am coming to you so upset right now. I'm so upset because I recorded the most incredible episode and I decided literally as I was about to press stop recording to start fidgeting with my computer screen, and I freaking unplugged the computer. So now this episode is even more potent for a couple of reasons that we're going to dig into. First of all, today's episode is all about overcoming objections. I'm going to do this from the perspective of your objections you're facing and equally the objections your clients are going to be facing. And I'm going to tell a bit of a story to really make this so understood that for you walking away from whatever it is that you're struggling with, or whatever objections, there's a word, that you are facing, it is crystal clear exactly what you need to do. Equally, your responsibility in utilizing the same format to support your clients with overcoming theirs too. So first, let's talk about me recording this episode and then it getting unplugged. I have been in this space in my life over the last 2 weeks where I have been in what seems like an identity crisis. All the things have been coming up in my head. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? You don't know enough. You don't have enough resources. You don't have enough, fill in the blank. And a big part of this started when at the beginning of June, I announced that everything was primarily going to be focused surrounding supporting spiritual entrepreneurs. And so these fears of you have 3.5 months until this baby is born and you're going to take maternity leave. What are you doing? You have certainty, you have security, you have safety, you have appropriate projections for you to be able to do that until the middle of January. Why are you changing everything now? What if people don't like it? What if they don't buy it? What if they drop out? What if? And that is real. Those are real, tangible fears that I was facing when I decided to go all in with this next stage of my experience and ascension in this mission that I'm being called into. Okay. If you're feeling the pivot in your life to do something differently in little or even big, bold ways, you are likely facing the same struggles, the same objections right now. Okay. And for me, these last 2 weeks have been this huge crisis of trying to work through that, trying to overcome the guilt, overcome the shame, overcome the worry, overcome the contradictions. And one thing that has supported me foundationally through and through is truly this relationship that I am building with God and learning about God and his wisdoms and his words and his promises and the healings of Jesus and the love and the acceptance and the truth through the gospel. But even in me opening this up, I have an app on my phone. It's called the Holy Bible app. And so it reads, or there's a person who does a mini sermon on different verses each day. And so I primarily focus on that each day. And some days I'll actually open up the Bible and just like kind of open it up as if it was an oracle card deck and say, okay, God, what do you need for me to know today? And whatever story opens up, I read it. And it's always the perfect story for me to understand my responsibility and the truth of what I'm facing versus going to other energies, going to the universe, going to spirit guides to try and validate what's going on with me. Okay, so what's so beautiful about what I'm learning about the Bible is that it holds me accountable to a higher truth. It's not trying to validate where I am right now, because if I'm leaning on and relying on the myself, survivalism, I am subjected to the defaults of my own ways of thinking. And equally, that is what your clients are struggling with too. Whether you're offering readings, whether you're offering healings, whether you are a spiritual coach, whether you are a massage therapist or a hypnotherapist or a therapist, period, or fill in the blanks, a nurse even, your clients are coming to you for support in some fashion or form. And it is your job to understand how to hold subjective conversations with them, meaning that your emotions and your thoughts and beliefs are removed, while also knowing the primary framework that is going to get them to understand their accountability and what they are facing, break through their emotions and beliefs around what they are struggling with, and come back to a sense of faith that is greater than them solely relying on you. Because if you're teaching them to rely on you, you're not actually teaching them how to transform their life. You're just taking their focus from the money aspect or the relationship aspect or the self aspect or the health aspect and now placing all of that burden on you. Meaning that you're making it now your responsibility to make sure that they get their results or that they can have their long-lasting relationship or transformation, when ultimately the only person we should truly be turning to in our darkest of hours and our greatest of achievements is God, because God created us. He knows what we're thinking, what we're going to think 5 minutes from now, the steps that we're going to take, the decisions that we're going to make, and all the in-betweens of it. And there is a wildly important role that coaches and education plays in our life. We can't expect ourselves to meditate on the floor and know how to draft up a legal contract for our services. You never learn that. You literally have no idea what you're doing. You can't expect to sit on the floor and meditate on the clarity of your offer if you've never actually learned how to create clarity in an offer. You can't sit down and meditate on the floor and expect to have a perfectly divine designed business model mapped out for you in all of its sequence if you've never learned how to create or curate a business model or even how business is run. I went to school for 2 years to learn how to run a business, but I never went to school to learn how to start up a business. So when I started up a business, it was my responsibility to educate myself and hire or find the resources to know how to do that. And it is why I teach these things in the Align and Ascend Mastermind. Because if you have a disorganized foundation or no foundation at all, you're constantly going to perpetuate, well, I need to show up online 17 more times. I need to be on my phone messaging people right away so that they get the answers, so that they get the information, so that I don't miss it on the sale. But when you build your business from the foundation up, and even for those of you who may be making more consistent cash flow in your business, if your foundation does not, or if you do not have a foundation or your foundation lacks organization and stability, equally structure, that is going to be your primary focus of where you need to go back and really start breaking that out and cleaning that up so that you can move forward and scale. For example, in my business, I have the contracts in place, I have the systems in place, I have the containers in place, and I have the processes and the team in place. And you don't necessarily need the team to be able to support more in your business, though it will eventually become needed and necessary if your goal is to make multiple 6 figures and 7 figures in your business, right? But I have those processes in place. So onboarding clients and making sales and using social media as a strategy versus a crutch is really easy for me now because I have these things in place and I have a foundation for my business. So making that overnight money or money while I'm sleeping can happen very effortlessly because, again, I have the systems and the process and the foundation in place. And these are things that I teach in the Aligned Ascend Mastermind. So going back to my story, I'm in this identity crisis. And something that's really profoundly shifted, not only just my relationship with God, but the affirmations that I say. I'm no longer solely focused on, I am open to receiving cosmic blessings. I have unique beauty and gifts to offer the world. I am the co-creator of my reality. I have everything that I need and more. I am. I stopped focusing on affirmations that were about me. And the reason that I did this is because what I come to find is that though they are powerful empowerment tools, so I'm not saying they're not necessary, but when in times of struggle and in times of confusion and confliction, they're not going to help me because now I'm solely relying on me. Meaning that I'm defaulting into a state of survivalism. I'm defaulting into a perception of not enough. So reinforcing that I am or I have is putting all the burden on me to figure it out. And even if I know enough or I have enough or I'm capable enough, if I don't feel and see that in myself, in my life, reaffirming that is not necessarily going to help me. So what I've started to do instead, because ultimately when you want to live out your mission in your life and your purpose in this life, it's not about the reliance of you figuring it out. It's about you learning to turn to God to provide to you the path forward that He designed for you. There is a purpose for you in this world. There is a mission for you in this world. There is literally a plan for you in this world. But if you're relying on yourself to always figure it out, you're relying on the default of yourself to figure it out, which is not necessarily going to help you, right? So I switched my affirmation to God, transform my ears, eyes, and heart to see your will for me. And even when I started this affirmation a couple weeks ago, I wasn't like, oh, I feel this and I love this and I get it and I'm connected to it and I'm aligned with it and it makes so much sense and I'm going to throw a party. I did not feel that way. But through repetition, every day, every time my mind wanted to wander or focus in on lack or struggle with what was going on, whatever was happening, whatever I was worried about, when I would reaffirm that, it would shift my focus to putting the burden all on me and opening my heart up to letting the divine plan that is meant for me to come through instead. 2 weeks of doing this on repetition, interrupting myself in the middle of the day, 5 minutes later after doing it and feeling slightly better, it coming back and still doing it over and over again, starting my day off with this, finishing my day off with this, right? Like I let this affirmation, this one simple affirmation of taking the burden and weight off of me and opening up my heart to the plan that was meant for me to become clear. And so as I would do this, it was yesterday. So perfect timing for this episode. I pre-plan my episodes and then I don't record them till closer to the date when they're supposed to launch most times. And this is literally why. So yesterday, after saying this affirmation for about a week, I had a couple things that were scheduled to be done in the morning. And so I did them. And then I had the whole day open. And normally what I would do was I'd sit in front of the computer and I'd do a whole bunch of other things that I had on the list for like even what I had today. And, that way I'm getting ahead of myself. All the while knowing that today or the next day, I'd be sitting down essentially doing the same thing or something else, but I'm not necessarily freeing up more time. And so with this free time, I decided that we were going to go with my husband. We're all going to pack up and go with him and just go spend the day running errands and doing the things that we needed to do. Because that's ultimately why I created my business, is to be able to have time freedom to do things, whether it makes sense, whether there's a reason for it, or whatever the case may be. And so with the afternoon, I went and we got to run the errands and we got to spend time as a family and laugh and play and do all these different things. And on our way home, We were listening to a Christian playlist, which is literally my favorite thing in the world. And there's just so much hope in it, which is why I love it so much. And the music is just uplifting. Like, even if you don't exactly know what they're saying, or you can't sing the lyrics out yet, the music itself is so uplifting. And so I'm sitting with this and we're singing along in the car and we're on our way home. And all of a sudden I get this divine download, and it's the rising. And I knew that the rising meant that this season of my life that I have entered is the rising. And even more so, to take it a step further, that where we're at globally and collectively is the phase of the rising. So in my perception shift to understand that everything that I've gone through, the awakening, the healings, the understandings, the educations, the work that I've done, where I'm at, the pivot that I'm making, is centered and focused around the rising. There's always going to be a shitstorm in our life. There's always going to be something going on. The globalists are going to be doing something. There's going to be underlining whatever. There's just always going to be something going on. So we can choose to focus on that. And we can choose to go down the holes of needing to know all the things about that, which is going to continue to perpetuate more trauma and stagnancy and overwhelm and stuckness. Or we can start pivoting our focus to the rising above it, overcoming it, changing in spite of it. And I felt this shiver run up my spine. It was like all of a sudden the first piece to that ingredients of that recipe just finally dropped in, and I knew that wasn't going to be it. Like, I just knew it, but everything lifted off of me. The worry that I felt, the guilt that I felt, the shame that I felt, the overwhelm that I felt, it all lifted off of me. And what was so powerful about that is when I got home, I was even more present with my kids. I had a couple of things left that I had scheduled to do for the day. I did them. I got off. I cleaned up what I needed to do, and I got to enjoy an evening with my husband watching Grimm. If you've ever watched Grimm, it's literally the best. It tells you so much about life that is, again, in plain sight. So I love these for that reason. Is Grimm, supernatural, like a lot of these, let's say mythical with air quotations on it, or Hollywood fantasy shows around spirits and stuff, like they're all just telling you accurate information, especially supernatural. Like, it goes into so much biblical history and even just like history in general and behind the scenes of spiritual warfare. And it's like, you hear that and you're like, that makes way more sense than we just invaded this country for resources. Like, anyways, that's a whole nother episode. But yeah, so love this, love Grimm. So we're watching. I don't feel guilt that I'm not doing something else. I don't feel like I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be. And in the beginning of 2020, I had this experience. It was the first time that this ever happened to me, where I started to get this like deep sense of anxiety moving through me. And I had no idea what it was. Never experienced panic attacks or anxiety attacks in my life. And all of a sudden, like my whole body, I needed to get up, I needed to move, I needed to do something, I needed to puke. I don't know what I need to do, but I need to go. And I knew that intuitively, I at the very least needed to get into water. And I intuitively knew that I needed to bring a paper and pen. I didn't know what I was going to write or what was going on. I just knew something was happening. I needed to get into water. I needed to bring these things to the bath. And in 2020, I channeled 35 pages of information that has played out literally to a T about everything that's happened in the world so far around specific things, and equally some things that have yet to come true. But so far, everything's lined up. I did a video in the Divine Expander free Facebook community about this, but you'd have to scroll back to like, I think it's like April or May of 2020, and it's still in there. Anyways, so last night I started to have that feeling again. So I knew I needed to go in the shower and just be with the water, and whatever was meant to come through was going to come through. And that's exactly what I did. And I channeled through the exact clarity, the answers that I needed, the information that I was seeking to continue to keep my heart open, my burdens light, and my mind clear and focused in this new direction. It all dropped through. Who I am, what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it, the framework in which I'm going to teach, and anything in between. And then I sat down after and channeled out 9 out of probably what will be 14 or 15 pages of chapter 4 for the book that I'm writing. And it was just, that was it. It was like, I didn't have to worry anymore. It just finally all made sense. And I share this with you because we're all going to face objections. We're all going to face challenges and struggles and trials at every stage of our life, because literally that's life. And if nobody's told you that yet, just because you overcome something one time or you heal something doesn't alleviate you from never having another trauma or trial in your life. Like eventually someone in your life will pass that will cause a trauma, that will cause a catalytic effect in your life. Some other thing might happen, right? You never know. But what I'm speaking to is that you will have tools that you can implement to surrender to and lean on that will support you even in the worst of your moments. And I also share this with you because as much as I position myself as someone who is knowledgeable, I want you to also understand that I go through these same things as well. What I share with you is not any different than what I hold myself accountable to and also equally implement to. And that just like you, I am a human being who has worries and fears and struggles and so on and so forth. Even if I don't necessarily share all the nitty-gritty details, like anyone you're comparing yourself to also has their issues in their life. And if they say that they don't, they're simply just lying. And that's probably someone that you should stop conversing with or at least seeking advice from, right? So when you are hosting a space, you're holding space for someone, you're offering healings or readings or therapy or counseling or whatever it is that you're doing, there is a framework for you to understand that will support your clients so much more and so much better than positioning yourself as their source of guidance. So I'm pretty sure that I've already mentioned this, but I'm going to just speak to it one more time. And that's, if you're teaching your clients to rely on you for information and wisdom and support, and you're not teaching them to go to a source higher and greater, the one who literally designed them, God, then you're not actually teaching them how to transform their life. You're just making yourself the center and focus of their resolution versus them knowing that they are, and so is God. And the reason that I say that is because there once was a time where I didn't believe that to be true. And why I find that it's so much of a struggle for a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs to really find union and grace and solace in that God is there truly providing for them, whether you want to try and deny it or not, or turn to it or not, is that I had to at one point admit that I was a hypocrite. And I didn't like that. I didn't like having to look myself in the mirror and say, oh shit, I was telling people things that were wrong. And if you don't educate yourself and if you don't stay open to curiosity, you're going to maybe position yourself as a false light. And if you genuinely care about the betterment of people, then you don't want that, right? And oftentimes what I see is people will try and disprove it, disprove that God exists or that God is better than anything else. So they'll say, well, Jesus is the representation of the sun and the 12 disciples or the 12 zodiacs, or, well, God is just this creation energy, but it's no different than this creation energy or Mother Earth, or there's more than just the 66 books in the Bible. There, Jesus had a wife and yada, and these were all left out and so on and so forth. But here's the thing. If you're settled in believing that spirits and ancestors and goddesses and deities and all these other guides are true, and you believe that energy is energy and that it is all equal, then why must you feel so called to disprove God, right? If you really believe that everything you're doing is true and accurate and correct, why do you feel like you have to disprove God? And this is something that I find to be very triggering for a lot of people who work with energy specifically, because we don't want to be wrong. We don't by nature want to have to admit fault. I didn't want to admit fault. I taught people about spirit guides and ancestors and angels and elementals and so on and so forth. I taught people how to better their lives through oracle readings, even for themselves, let alone starting a business. I taught people how to develop these skill sets in a way that I came to find was not actually ethical. And the more that I continued to stay open to learning and finding curiosity, or to leaning into curiosity of finding the truth, not my truth. I'm not going to rely on the default of me because I can only know so much as I have learned. But to find truth, I was continuously shown that go deeper, go deeper, go deeper. And what was so beautiful about it is that it allowed me to find God. And I tried to disprove it too. I tried to say, well, God is an energy. Well, Christ consciousness is this. Well, what about if I also do this? But the one thing I never did was open up the Bible until a few months ago and realize that if I genuinely want to live the life that I am saying that I live, the ethical teacher, the honest approach, guiding people to truth, genuinely helping people to better their lives in an overall transformative way, health, self, financial, spiritual, all of it, then it is my job to make sure that not only am I doing that for myself, but I have the instruction manual to do that. And even if you're a therapist, massage therapist, a counselor, a nurse, I've worked with nurses who have opened up their own practices too. These are things that you need to know that aren't traditionally taught. And I find that in the New Age spiritual community, that it's really easy to try and overcome your client's objections and equally your own by, well, let's see what the cards have to say. Well, let's do a healing on that fear right now. Well, if your client doesn't understand the root of that fear, and again, you're positioning yourself to be wiser than them, you're not actually helping them, right? And so that's where cognitive and emotional education comes in, something that I equally teach you in the Align and Ascend Mastermind, because now you can work your clients through the emotional and the thoughts of that fear so that they can sit and have the aha moments. I was working with a one-on-one client today, and she was talking about how she's constantly perpetuating these thoughts and these behaviors of fear and lack and worry and resentment and guilt and shame. And she knows better, but she's not doing better. So instead of me telling her the answer, I use the same skills that I teach and that I use on myself to guide her through the self-reflection so that she can better understand what's going on, and then seal that package up with not only self-accountability and responsibility, but also leaning on the faith of the person who created her to give her the guidance and strength to change and see it through, to let her eyes, ears, and hearts be inclined to God's will for her versus her eyes, ears, and heart be inclined to what I want for her, right? Or what she wants for herself. Because we can have the desires. You've talked about it. You've journaled about it. You've meditated on it. You've given the laundry list to God. He has heard you. He has heard you. He heard you the first time, the third time, the 50th time, and he will continue to hear you. But if you have to keep focusing on that, you don't actually believe that you're worthy of it. The universal law of detachment, right? And when I supported her through this, her takeaway was so much more profound than just accepting whatever I had to say. Instead, uncovering what was going on and finding solace and grace and love and acceptance in what God might have planned for her. That there really could be a lesson in this, that maybe the thing she's struggling with the most is the very thing that she gets to overcome because it's teaching her tools and accountability and understanding and insight into what she might likely be primarily teaching and supporting others with through her coaching business too, right? So even if you do readings or healings, I'm sharing with you that you get to upgrade that far beyond cards. Cards were only ever meant to be a tool. They're not supposed to be something you rely on. And arguably, in God, we don't even need them. Intuitively, I can teach you how to connect to your intuition without ever picking up a deck of cards. I learned how to do that, and I learned how to teach that because I realized that cards weren't the answer. The answer wasn't in the cards. And I had to come to a point of admitting openly that I was a hypocrite. I taught you something that I no longer agree with, that I've been educated on, that is actually quite different. But if I didn't go through that humility, if I didn't open myself up to curiosity of finding deeper truth, I would have not been able to, and would not have been able to support my clients in the degree and to the extent that I can today. But also I would have never have had this profound experience yesterday where I claimed my next level. I understood this is the season of the rising, and the framework and all of the details came pouring through. I wouldn't be there if I wouldn't have gone through what I did last summer. Right? So even from there, from that point of pivot where I realized that things that I had taught were not accurate, were not true, were in fact false lights, I wouldn't be able to be where I am a year later and say, Holy Lanta, Holy Mother Mary, I got it. I know what to do. I actually have enough resources and tools of what I already know right now that I can execute on this. And I teach these skills in the Align and Ascend Mastermind because ultimately you are going to evolve your practice. And whether you're getting started or whether you're looking to scale, this is something that is foundationally going to support you in your growth and development, but also in what you can help your clients with right from the start, or to incorporate in what you do and even lead with to make you a stronger leader in guiding them to truth. Ultimately, as a practitioner, your job is to guide your clients to truth, uncovering the root of what's going on beyond their fear, uncovering the confidence, the empowerment, the experience that is truly underneath the worries, the strifes, the burdens, all the things, the vision, and guiding them to, leading them to a higher faith, calling, and purpose. And the only way to understand that, no matter how good of a psychic you are, is to guide them to the source that created them. That is truly it. The amount of times that I got asked, what is my purpose in life? And I could give some generalized answer, and sometimes it was wildly accurate as well. Like, I see you as a doctor, or you are meant to genuinely help people, or I see you working in a field with animals, or whatever, fill in the blank. And it made sense. It resonated. Their soul tingled. Their body got shivers. They were like, wow, that's what I've been thinking about. I've been, since I was little, dreaming about it, wrote a vision board about it, whatever the case. I could do that. But if they are relying on me, then I can't give them all the steps. I can't give them the clarity and the advice and the understandings of how to get through whatever challenge that they're facing right now. That might still be a 1 to 2 to 5 to 10 year journey for them to even get to that vision. But God can, because He already knows what they're going to do 5 minutes from now, or a year from now, or the decisions and paths that they're going to make in between that. But what I can do as a practitioner is equip them with the emotional and the mental tools and lead them to develop, or encourage them to develop that understanding with their faith, so that when they're in those challenges, they have something to lean on. And that's what I realized ultimately as a spiritual practitioner, your job is. It's not giving answers. It is teaching people how to be able to go more in depth with themselves, which we think can be done through cards, which we think can be done through clearing the sacral chakra of sexual trauma, or clearing the mind's eye of the logical monkey mind. But you can't, because 5 minutes after that session, when they're walking to their car and they get a phone call from their mother that says, oh my gosh, something is missing, or this happened, or I need you to hear, and their brain starts to fire up, and you just cleared the monkey mind, that monkey mind's going to fire right back up. That healing session that you just did went to shit, and it wasn't really actually going to work for them because they walked away having no idea how to be able to navigate for themselves. And this is why I teach this. Because when you're not around, in the depths of the burdens and the guilt and the fear that your clients are facing, if you're expecting them to turn to you, you are equally taking on that burden for yourself. Now, I'm not saying don't be a support. Be a support. That's literally your job and role. But in what ways are you supporting them when they're in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. and it's not your office hours? So you're not answering your phone. You're not answering your messages or your Voxers. What do they have to turn to? Is it an emotional scale to move through? Is it a thought pattern reflection to move through? Is it God to work with? Is it Jesus to heal them of it? What are you teaching them? What are you helping them with? What are you supporting them with? And I share this with you because regardless of the objections that you face as to why you don't need or why you shouldn't or why you need to disprove, is equally going to be the same objections in different contexts that your clients are going to come to you with. And why it becomes so wildly important to know how to do this is because the education alone will transform your life. The faith that you develop alone will transform your life. And the space in which you lead from will transform your life. On top of that, the guidance, the clarity, the support, and the leadership that you can support your clients with is unmatched. Because no one can do what you do the way you will do it. No one can do what I do in the way that I will do it. And that's your superpower, backed by the one who created you, right? So whether you're a spiritual entrepreneur specifically, working with energy of any sort, or you're a massage therapist, a hypnotherapist, a counselor, and you want to be able to go to that next level, build a sustainable business, genuinely support people in the depth of transformation that you want to be able to help them with and guide them with and support them with, while having the foundation, the business structure, and the faith to do it, then the Alignedness and Mastermind is for you. Because you will face fears, you will face challenges, and so will your clients. And it is in community and conviction and connection and education that you will be able to see through and move through and know, not even trust, but know that God has a greater plan for you. And the surrender and the release becomes so much more effortless because you have this repetitive process that doesn't require you to meditate 30 minutes a day every day. I'm not trying to rag on meditation. Meditation is actually very helpful, especially for stilling your mind and your energy and going more into that trance-like state. Many, many benefits to it. But being able to execute on your actions, getting in alignment with the behaviors that are ultimately going to get you to that next level and version of you, to help you to rise beyond what you're sick and tired of dealing with every single day, to whatever degree that is. Business thing, a self thing, a life thing, all of it in between, right? You get to experience it all. And that's what I received and understood very, very clearly. Though I had many fragments of that, I just didn't have the string to tie it all together until last night. That's literally what I am here to teach you. And it's also why when I go on maternity leave in October, why I'm going to be spending those 3 months developing a certification program that's going to launch next year. Because this is the type of foundational, important, life transformational work that not only do we get to know and utilize for ourselves, but we get to support people with. And like I said in the last episode, the personal development industry in 2022 alone is going to be a $20 billion industry. It is only going to grow. So imagine being equipped with the skills and the tools and the knowledge and the understandings and the faith and the structure and the strategy, literally all of it, to help you thrive and keep going despite whatever comes up, and equally have all the resources available to you to keep going and doing better and guiding people in the most powerful and profound ways. I'm not saying that there's not a place for other modalities, but what I am saying is I've come to learn that there really truly is one true, pure modality. That is what I've come to learn. And I made a video on TikTok yesterday. And so whenever you bring truth to the world, the darkness will always come out. And so I did a video, and it was contexting why connecting with guides and ancestors may be holding you back. And it was a follow-up to a couple other videos. But I had this one person who has, she's a witch and she practices paganism and all these other things. I'm not ragging on her. That's just literally what it says on her profile. Came out to, she just went to blast me through it. And I sat there and I was like, man, God, I hope that you find her and you help her to restore her eyes, heart, and ears to you as well. And that's it. I wasn't triggered by it. I wasn't ashamed of it. I wasn't worried about it. I wasn't suffering from it. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, someone disagrees with me. Oh, I didn't do any of that. It was just like, bless and release. I don't have to hold on to this. You're going to face some shitty situations being in business and people disagreeing with you, especially if you're leading from a genuine place of integrity. I think it was like the beginning of summer last year, I got slandered on social media because somebody disagreed with my point of view and totally took it out of context. But nonetheless, I was so distraught about that. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm ruined. I've wrecked everything. I shouldn't have said anything. And I put all this blame on myself. And it was like, I'm willing to be wrong. I think that's the difference. And as a spiritual entrepreneur, you best be open to that too. I'm willing to be wrong. I'm willing to stay curious. If I'm staying curious, then I'm constantly in flow. I'm constantly allowing myself to question and adjust and adapt as I go. And it was so hard, but I lived through it. Just like you'll have a person in your life who disagrees with you and they'll say awful things to you, about you, behind your back, whatever, so on and so forth. Life will happen. And it can feel so much more personal when it's your business with your name on it and it's your income that you're creating from it. But it doesn't mean your life is over. It just means someone disagreed with you. And I always put it into perspective. Imagine how Britney Spears feels, okay? This poor woman, who really truly knows the story of what's all taking place, because there is so many perspectives and so many stories. But do you think Britney Spears goes on her social media and she goes, oh, Jennifer said something so mean about my hair? No, she doesn't. And she's at the point where she has a team she probably doesn't even see any of that, right? And even people that I know that have really big followings, they don't even half the time respond to the negative people because it just comes with the territory. And not everybody's going to like you. And your objections are going to work in the same way. So if you feel like I don't have enough, I first implore you to really lean on your faith and then actually take apart. Is there something that you can be better educated on? Are you actually struggling because you genuinely do not know what to do? And if so, who do you need to hire? What do you need to be a part of to be able to uncover that, right? So I'm going to leave that with you. This is the last opportunity or last week to enroll in the Align and Ascend Mastermind before we kick off on July 5th for the 90-day accelerator experience. It gives you access to the program for 12 months beyond our 3 months of hands-on training and support so that you can implement things as you go and grow without having to worry that you don't have it all in place yesterday before you even started. And this is the container for you to really become the world-class healer, supporter, spiritual guide that you genuinely want to be, and ultimately have an edge to stand out online. All right, I love you guys. Everything's in the show notes, and we will chat very, very soon. Before you go, I would love and appreciate so much if you could take a moment of your time to leave a 5-star review. It helps me to be able to get this message out to so many more in the world And I am so truly thankful that you choose this place to be every single week. Until next time, don't forget to find the magic in today.